All right, welcome back. My guest today is the CEO and founder of RKS Design, Mr. Ravi Sawhney. Ravi, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. And yourself?
Great, great. So tell me about RKS Design. I've met a lot of CEOs, but not a lot of people who've been the CEO for over 40 years. Talk to me about RKS and when you started it and why you started it.
Oh, you want to go way back? Okay. I've been in design now, you can imagine, 49 years. I started working in design in college for different design firms. And by the time I left college, I was still a kid, I started working when I was 19 in design firms. From one design firm, then got hired away to another design firm, then got hired away and recruited to another design firm. And then I got recruited to go to work for Xerox. And at that time, I got thrown into a think tank with dozens of PhD psychologists, programmers, technologists working with Xerox PART and developing the first touchscreen interface. So at that point, I learned that design is just a tool to affect the human condition and to motivate people to do something they might otherwise not do, which at that time was touching a screen to control something on this advanced Xerox machine, which could scan, which could had email, which had Ethernet, which I mean, it's just crazy that they had all this functionality, but they didn't have a control panel for it. So we developed this touch screen. I didn't really enjoy big corporate life. So in about 1980, I just said, I'm not a 9 to 5 guy. I'm like more a 10 till 2 in the morning person.
Gotcha.
And so I just struck out on my own and I was freelancing for other design firms, started picking up clients. Originally, it was RKS Design Associates, and eventually just became RKS Design Associates, me, myself, and I, the the three associates. And then over the years, started with one client, helped them, they grew. Another client helped them, they grew. One of the big clients in 1982 was a company called Tandon that was making disk drives. They grew to be a high flyer on the NASDAQ, and we were designing computers and all kinds of products for them. Here we are. That was 1982. We're still working with one of the founders of that company.
Wow, that's cool.
And just got the word out. And I guess it's like Jay Leno. He says, I'm not not the second hand. I'm not the minute hand. I'm the hour hand. It doesn't look like it's moving, but when you come back and see it's moved. And then in 1982, coming out of Xerox, I still wanted to be human centered. In 82, I wrote the underpinning for the firm. It's not how you feel about a design or experience, it's how it makes you feel about yourself. Because I took this away from Xerox. Xerox, the psychologists, they really turned my thinking inside out about design. And then short story, a long story turned short. 85, I got asked to take this crazy, like ugly teddy bear with servos in the head and a cassette player that talked, and got to redesign that into something that looked like a real teddy bear and came to life. And that became Teddy Ruxpin.
Oh, how fun.
So Teddy Ruxpin was a huge business phenomenon. I did all of the design work. We did all the mechanical design. I hand carved the bodies and the foams, and then things just kept moving along. In the 80s, I was also teaching. I taught for part-time in a couple of years at my alma mater, Cal State Northridge. I have two of my prized students who work here still today.
Oh, cool.
And I started teaching at Art Center, and then I stopped teaching, and things got busy. And along the way, we worked for Sega and Samsung and LG and Apple, and the list just goes on and on. No,
Wow. So I want to ask you, obviously, way back in the 80s, that was a much different, say, scope of design that you would have with a client. So, what type of client engagements do you work with now here in 2024?
then it was very tactical. we could say. Someone come to you with a project that's defined. Here, we need you to do the industrial design around it. Today, it is, um, we have a competitive situation. We need you to define what our feature set is, what our unique selling points are. We need to define what is our go-to-market strategy, and then to execute on it and actually we create the firmware and the electronics and the software and the user, the app, and the device. So it's evolved from being very tactical to being very strategic and actually building roadmaps for our clients about here's Gen 1, here's Gen 2, here's Gen 3, keeping them focused. And some of the projects we've laid out go out 5 years of continual innovation, multi generations on the apps and the connected devices. Yeah, it's a really exciting evolution of where not just I as a designer and the firm has gone, but where design has gone in general, from being very tactical, very much like window dressing. At Xerox, I think we were treated like window dressing until I got thrown into this think tank. It was like, here, everything's figured out. You guys give it a look. To today, it's nothing's figured out. What do we do?
Nice, nice. And I think that probably is more empowering for creative like yourself.
Yeah, I think that's probably why after all these years, I'm not bored, and I'm excited every day. I'm charged up every day. And it's, you have your kids saying, Dad, when are you going to retire? It's like, retire? Right? Why would I retire? I'm just starting to have fun here. It's just, we just got to a good place.
So we're talking a little bit about creativity, right? One of the things you said earlier was really funny. You said you're not a 9 to 5 guy, you're more like a 10 to 2 a.m. guy. When do you feel most creative, and when do you like to be able to flex that creative muscle?
Oh boy. But it depends on what I'm doing. When I'm writing, it's music is a big part of our life around here. If you were here in the studio, you'd see guitars everywhere. You would see speakers we've designed. You would see everything. So I use music to, like, I have a specific album. If I have to do a certain type of writing, I put on my headphones. I put on David Bowie's Station to Station, and then I write. When we're collaborating in the studio, it gets very creative very quickly. But I guess the true creativity happens when we set up a war room and we build these posters of personas. And so we really dive deep into the hero's journey of each persona, what their life's about, who they're about, what are their pain points, what are their need states. We turn those into help me statements, and you start building not just empathy but an emotional connection with who you're designing for, why you're doing this, who you're innovating for, who you're creating for. And it's not about you, it's about speaking to and speaking for these other people whose hopefully lives are going to change in some small way, or in many cases some big way. But it's interesting that when we go through that process, it's not just my team's creativity that erupts. It's like our clients, their creativity comes forward, and people who are not labeled the creatives have brilliant tacit, like, ideas that come forward when they start thinking about these people, these situations. And you come away, I don't know if we're hugging, but you're bonded. It's,
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one of the things that I've noticed post-pandemic. My company went fully remote. Looks like you guys are still in the office, and there's two areas where remote, I feel like it just really is lacking. And one is the ability to train employees, but two is that brainstorming. Like, there is nothing better than being in a room with a bunch of other creative people and collaborating and being able to really work on something creative and build it and build on the energy of one another. How are all of your clients involved in that process, or is that something internal that your team gets to do for your clients? How does that balance?
it varies. Our clients love to come to the office, and we invite them in on these collaborative work sessions, brainstorms, whatever you want to call them, We invite them in, but some of them are across the ocean, either in China or India or in Europe or the Middle East or South America. So we do it on Zoom, but the dynamic is very different. You end up being the creative person, and you have to listen to them. There is something special that happens when you're in the same room, and the nonverbal communication doesn't come across that well on Zoom. I won't say it doesn't happen, but does it happen at the level that really creates brilliant, innovative ideas? And I always say that you miss out on when someone says something like, "Hey, what if we do this?" and you misunderstand them, but your misunderstanding of them is like a level beyond even what they were saying. And it's just hard to do. It's hard to do with Zoom. But we've done it with as many as 40 team members on Zoom collaborations and broken them out into groups of 8 into different rooms because you have to. You have to. And so it's second best, but you can make it work, but there's nothing as good as face to face.
Yeah, I've worked with on enough creative projects to know that, like, one of the things that will just kill, like, a great creative piece of work is too many other people's opinions. You just said 40 people on a Zoom, 40 people from the client side, and 39 have other opinions on what they want out of the great work that's already been created. How do you structure your engagements to minimize having too many cooks in the kitchen, and so that you guys can actually do the work that you've been hired to do without it being really diluted by somebody's opinion who probably doesn't matter?
I'm glad you asked that because when I started, we would do these sketches or renderings of what a product might look like. And at that point, everybody's got an opinion, right? No joking aside, I have been in meetings with executives where they've taken a rendering that we put a lot of thought into the design of, and the executive says, "Here, let me write out a Mad Men. Let me show this to my secretary and see what she thinks." And puts a stake through your heart because you're a professional. But what's happened with psychosthetics is that everything becomes objective and pragmatic, and the visual tools of the mapping and the personas and how we lay out the hero's journey, everything becomes so pragmatic that when people have an opinion, they're looking at the mapping and they're talking about this position might move here, this might go there. And it no longer is a personal opinion or a like or dislike. It really becomes very objective and pragmatic. And I think when we did Life Technologies, we were designing a global language for a $5 billion company. And we had a 2-hour window, and we presented the personas, the mapping, the journeys of 3 different scenarios. And we had the CMO, CEO, CTO all there. And in 2 hours, we decided on the global design language for that company. And it went to it executed very well. And it was just very smooth. If it was down to what do you like or dislike, like that's just spells risk, right? How do I know? I don't know what your tastes are. And if you're designing for a scientist and this goes into the laboratory, their tastes aren't the same tastes that they have at home in the furniture. So it evolved to being objective and pragmatic. And the biggest relief in my life, because I'm not in an argument with anybody about pick a design. We really go in, we listen, we debate, and then we come back and say, based on what we're all saying, this is the right design to fall into the opportunity zone. So we actually on a map, we actually map out visually what an opportunity zone is.
Okay, very cool. And as an entrepreneur, what are you like? Are you somebody who structures every minute of your day? Do you have gaps for just to be creative? Are you good at balancing work and life? But how do you manage it all?
I would say I'm creative 100% of the time. That part of me never turns off. The life work balance is great for me because the team is so solid. They're so smart. They're so experienced that they know the right times to engage me. They know the right times to engage each other. They know the right questions to ask. They know the right things to show each other. So literally, come today was I was in at 7 this morning, but after this conversation, I'll probably bail out, go take my dogs for a walk on the beach. And but you got to strike that balance. In my early days, I used to, when my kids were little, I would come home, have dinner with them, read to them, spend time with them, and I would go back to work till 11 or midnight. And yeah, you got to be a little bit fanatical if you really are into what you're doing. It wasn't unusual for us in those days to do all-nighters. We were just so passionate about what we do. But today, everybody's got a good balance. But we do work hard, all of us.
So knowing that you love being creative all the time, do you get more joy in directing like the collective creativity, like on a project, then you have like designers and then you watch their progress? Or do you get more satisfaction as I've got this idea, I have to make it right now myself?
Oh, I think the biggest rush is seeing other team members come up with brilliance. That's a reflection of the culture of the organization. That's a reflection of teamwork. And that's maybe it goes back to my teaching days, but I don't think I come up with ideas, and sometimes they're good ideas, and sometimes they're great ideas, and sometimes they're dumb ideas. There's nothing more exciting than seeing the success of the other teammates and team members as they grow and they evolve and they do brilliant things. I think one of the most fun things to do is to walk around and see the other people's work. And maybe you're an outsider to maybe you see a little tweak here, a little tweak there, or you see a mistake. But mostly you just get to see brilliant work coming out of people who are here working together under the RKS Design sign. It's yum.
Awesome. Well, I got one more question for you, and it's along those lines. What's next for RKS? How are you guys going to evolve as a company as we continue to just evolve here as a society?
That's probably a great question you ask everybody. and yeah, and hopefully I won't have the same answer. But it's not just about company growth. It's not about financial growth. We're doing some very relevant projects. I sit on the board of several companies. And I have equity positions that are awarded to me. We're not doing, I'll reduce my fee, you give me an equity position. It's where people really value the experience and contribution. And then we're heavily involved in a company called Aspargo.
Okay.
And Aspargo is liquefying medication. And I would say that's probably one of the most exciting projects that we've been involved with, because 40% of people have trouble swallowing pills. 150,000 people in the US alone die from non adherence to their medication protocols. It's mind blowing. And through the liquefaction of the medication, the absorption rates are fast. It's tasty. You don't have trouble swallowing a pill. 80% absorbs through the mouth. So you can get better medicines. You can get them on better timing. It's easier. It's healthier. And aphasia is a real concern. People have Parkinson's. People have Alzheimer's. Even just normal people. And I think they're gonna revolutionize medicine through and I've always said that I would love to design the next Apple Watch and make this beautiful watch. But boy, if you could save one person's life, that's so much more meaningful. And we got exciting things happening where we're gonna, sounds crazy, but I think those kind of solutions can change the world.
That's awesome. All right, Robbie, where can people find you?
Easy. I'm on LinkedIn. The firm is rksdesign.com. The book is on Amazon, Psychoaesthetics 2.0. And yeah, I'm around. Happy to hear. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much for being on, Robbie. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it too.
That's it for today. If you like what you see, give us a thumbs up and make sure you hit subscribe so you can see our latest videos as soon as they drop. We really appreciate you watching. See you next time.